Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Kansas Senate District 10 General Election Candidate Forum. We apologize for the delay here. We're getting started about 6 minutes late, but we had a few technical issues. So definitely thank you for your patience in waiting on us. So my name is Joe Riedel. I serve as the chair of the Shawnee Chamber's Government Affairs Committee, and it is my honor to be your moderator for today's forum. As we did in the primary election, we are hosting these forums this year in a virtual format. So please bear with us as we adjust to this method of providing you with information to assist you in making informed choices before casting your ballot in the upcoming election. On behalf of the Johnson County Public Policy Council, a collaboration of all 10 area chambers of commerce, and particularly on behalf of Overland Park, Northeast Johnson County, and Shawnee chambers, thank you for attending our forum featuring candidates from the Kansas Senate District number 10. I would like to thank the sponsor of our governmental affairs program in Shawnee throughout the year, Evergy. Thank you very much, Evergy. The format today will be the same for all of our forums and will be as follows. We will begin with a 3-minute opening statement by each of the candidates, then followed by a moderated question and answer period during which each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond, and then followed up by a 2-minute closing statement by each candidate. The format, questions, and time limits will be the same for each candidate, and due to time constraints, there will be no follow-up questions or formal rebuttal time. Candidate speaking order has been randomly determined with the candidates, and we will rotate throughout the program. Questions have been prepared in advance by the chamber staff based on member input and have not been shared with the candidates. If we have time, we will attempt to answer any questions that might be submitted through the chat function in Zoom. So with that, let's get started. And let me now introduce the candidates in the general election for Senate District number 10, which encompasses all of the city of Shawnee, Merriam, south of Johnson Drive, and 2 precincts in northern Overland Park. First, Lindsey Constance. Lindsey is an educator, city council member, community leader, and a mom raising 4th-generation Kansas. With 16 years of education experience, she currently serves families in the Shawnee Mission School District and was elected to the Shawnee City Council in 2017. She is a co-founder of Climate Action KCS and is married and has 2 young children. Mike Thompson. Mike spent nearly 40 years in broadcasting, much of it on 2 Kansas City television stations. Beyond his work on television, he is heavily involved in the Kansas City community and is currently serving the remainder of former District 10 Senator Mary Pilcher Cook's term. So with that, the predetermined order, we are going to be beginning with opening statements by each candidate. Each candidate will have 3 minutes, and we're going to begin with Mr. Thompson. So Mr. Thompson, go ahead.
All righty, thank you very much, and thanks to the Chamber for holding this, and I appreciate everybody who's viewing in here today. The opportunity to talk to you individually, and we've been out there on the campaign trail talking to a lot of different people about the various issues that affect you. First, a little bit about my background. I'm a native Kansan. I grew up, born in Wichita, grew up in Burlington, Kansas, and except for the time that I've spent in the Navy, 3 years aboard an aircraft carrier, 4 years active duty, and a few years in other markets, 38 years I've been right here calling Shawnee home and working in the Kansas City area. Since I got off television, I've started 3 businesses. One's a 501c3. I actually went through and passed the Series 6.6 and Series 7 tests, so I'm qualified to be a financial advisor. I built 3 websites, taught myself how to do that. So that's all in the last 22 months, as well as serving as a senator since January of this year. So obviously, I don't know how to multitask at all. I'm kind of a busy guy, but I like that. I like the challenges. In my former career as a meteorologist, the challenge of working with innumerable variables every day, looking at and analyzing data, I think lends itself to this job because as a legislator, you're faced with all sorts of different topics and different things that you have to make quick decisions on. A lot of bills run through the Senate, and you have to be able to research and discern very quickly what works and what doesn't, and what's going to be best for the state economically. I've got 10 grandkids. Most of my family resides here in Kansas, so it's important for me to make this state a vital, prosperous place for everyone to live and to grow and to be able to stay. We've got a lot of challenges, and with since the pandemic has hit, I think it gives us an opportunity not only to look at the challenges very carefully, but also maybe a unique opportunity to scrutinize some of the things we have to do to get our state back on track. And I think that includes scrutinizing the state budget, making wise decisions about what we do going forward. And so I'm ready for those challenges, and I've got some ideas I think that will help. And I look forward to being able to serve as your senator for another 4 years.
All right, thank you, sir. And thank you for being with us today.
Sure.
With that, we'll move over to Miss Lindsey Constance.
All right, thank you to the Shawnee Chamber for giving candidates a chance to share our ideas with the public. Thank you to Evergy for sponsoring, and to Senator Thompson for joining me today. I have served on the Shawnee City Council since 2017, also serving on the Governing Affairs Committee for the Chamber, as well as the Visit Shawnee Advisory Committee. On the council, I have championed the strategic visioning process that we just completed with a lot of resident input on what we want to see for our city in the next 20, 40 years. I have also supported efficiency opportunities, from green streets to energy cost savings through efficiency improvements, even Evergy's Renewables Direct program to go 100% clean energy and save money doing that. I've been very supportive of economic development projects in Shawnee. It's so important to bring jobs here and attract businesses to our community. Just recently, we supported some small business COVID relief grants to help our small businesses bounce back after the shutdown. On a personal note, I'm married with 2 children. I just started actually my 17th year of teaching, and currently serve the students and families in the Shawnee Mission School District, where I graduated and where my own children attend school. The focus of my career has been on STEM, and now mentoring and providing professional development for teachers. I am committed to facing problems head on, using data and science to guide my decision making. Just 2 years ago, actually 2 years ago, October, I read a report on some of the local impacts of climate change. So I brought together hundreds of elected and business leaders from across the region to come up with strategies and systems on how we can address these problems head on. Currently, in partnership with the Mid-America Regional Council, with Evergy, the Kansas City Chamber, and other local businesses, we are working on a regional climate action plan so that we can implement strategies to make the Kansas City region more resilient. So I am committed to using this same data-driven, collaborative approach at a state level. I'll fight for common sense policies, I'll build bipartisan coalitions, and I'm going to work really hard to solve problems and make people's lives better. So really appreciate the opportunity to be here with y'all.
All right, thank you. We're glad you're here with us. So, like I said earlier, we're going to be kind of going in alternating order here. So the first question is up to you, Ms. Constance. What do you see as the top 3 business policy issues facing the state of Kansas in this coming year?
I think first we need to encourage business innovation and good paying jobs. Some of the sectors I see that happening in are healthcare and bioscience, also renewable energy. I'm sure folks saw yesterday the exciting announcement about the Grain Belt Express line. It's going to allow us to export electricity 800 miles across Kansas into neighboring states. It's going to create thousands of jobs, and it's billions of dollars of investment right here in Kansas. I will point out that Senator Thompson has opposed renewable energy, and I think that it is a great way for us to really take some of the strengths that we have in Kansas and have it work for our state. By being proactive and leaning into these opportunities, we're going to help our communities thrive. Second, we've got to invest in transportation and infrastructure so that we have reliable and safe roads and bridges that's going to attract economic development to our state. I absolutely support the investment in the Eisenhower Plan. Again, Senator Thompson was one of 2 senators to vote against that. And finally, I think we need to expand access to affordable healthcare. Absolutely, right now, in the middle of a pandemic, we've got to make sure that folks have access to healthcare. It provides Kansans with that care, it creates jobs, and it keeps our hospitals open. So those would be my top 3 priorities.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Thompson, same question redirected to you. What do you see as the top 3 business policy issues facing the state of Kansas in the coming year?
There are several things. Property taxes are too high. They've been increasing at triple the rate of inflation, and if we can't keep those low, we can't keep our businesses open, and people are leaving the state. There's no doubt about that. Lower regulation. In fact, the Shawnee Chamber announced an initiative to repeal the liquor by the drink law. Things like that, common sense things that reduce the barriers for businesses to be able to open. Tax policy for this region needs to be competitive. Kansas is the fifth highest taxed state in the nation. And as a result, it's a big problem for us. Energy policy is huge. You look at California, where they've been replacing dispatchable power with non-dispatchable power, and that's why they've had all the blackouts out there. That's the problem with the renewable energy. It's not that I oppose renewable energy completely, but I think it's a very, very dangerous situation when you run the dispatchable power plants that we rely on, like Wolf Creek and the gas power plants, force them to run at negative cost. Eventually you're going to have some serious problems with energy. So Kansas needs to look at our energy profile very carefully. Common sense common sense spending. The reason I voted against the transportation bill was because it was a 10-year plan and it guarantees cost overruns. It guaranteed $8 million per county for all of the counties. So if you had a, okay.
Yep.
I could explain my position further, by the way.
Yeah, and I was about to say we'll give you a couple seconds to run over, but if it gets a little too much, I'll just have to cut you off. So I appreciate that. So, but question number two, and you'll have some closing statement time.
Okay.
Question number two, which we're sticking with you here, Senator Thompson. How would you propose to balance the state budget? What specific budget cuts would you support, and what revenue enhancements would you consider, if any?
Well, I think what we've got to do right now, we're faced with a budget deficit going into 2021. So there's several things we could do. We could do a hiring freeze if we've got retirees and resignations. If we haven't replaced those positions within 6 months, then we need to reallocate employees across the area and eliminate those positions. We need to go line by line throughout the budget. We're gonna be faced with that, and that's part of the reason I voted against the state budget and the KDOT budget, because it guaranteed cost overruns at a time when we knew we were shutting down the economics of this state and shutting down businesses. So it didn't make sense to vote for a budget that was already going to be over the previous budget by $50 million when we knew we were going to be faced with this sort of thing. We should be zero-based budgeting at the state level, so that when businesses run their business, you don't start at what you're spending and then add. You have to justify the spending for the next year. Otherwise, you go out of business. We need to run the state like a business. We need to allow itemization on Kansas tax returns to encourage charitable giving and minimize state taxes. We need to work with the de minimis threshold on sales tax. The Wayfair decision is a big problem for those folks who are selling products out of the state of Kansas. We're forcing our businesses to be the tax collectors for other states. So there's a lot of different things we need to do. There are things we can fix the budget, and I think that's just the beginning. There's a lot.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Constance, same question to you. How would you propose to balance the state budget? What specific budget cuts would you support, and what revenue enhancements would you consider, if any?
I would start by accepting federal dollars to help us pay for the resources we're going to need to help our economy bounce back during this time of COVID and help unemployed Kansans pay the bills during this crisis. I do think it's worth noting that Senator Thompson did sign a letter discouraging the federal government from giving our state millions. And I think that we need to be accepting of those federal dollars and keep them right here in our state. Secondly, I want to have a balanced approach to our budget. We had too many years of an unbalanced approach that was not relying on income tax as much as sales and property. And right now we have residents that are really struggling under that unbalanced approach with too heavy of property taxes. So I think that's incredibly important. Third, we need to continue investing in our roads, in our infrastructure, in our broadband, because it brings jobs, and it also lets businesses know that we are a safe and reliable place to do business and to put down roots. And finally, I support policies that attract companies that want to innovate here. I was really pleased to see that Evergy announced 85% renewables by 2030, and that, of course, with the Grain Belt Express transmission line announcement yesterday is showing that that direction is something that's not only good for our state, but it's good for economy, it's good for jobs, and it's saving billions of dollars in electricity costs. So I really think we have got to be capitalizing on the unique advantages that we have here in Kansas so that we can move forward during this difficult time.
Okay, thank you. And staying with you, question number 3, what would you do to grow and develop the state's workforce?
You know, there's definitely a significant gap with workforce preparedness. In meeting with Commissioner Watson about a year ago for some work with the school district, he shared with us that approximately 70% of Kansas jobs require post-secondary training, yet only 40% of adults have that necessary training and education. We know, businesses know, our state knows that education is key to providing those opportunities so that people can learn skills and participate in the workforce. And it's something that I hear as a big concern for lots of our business leaders. Where are they going to have that talented and educated workforce in the future? So I support funding our post-secondary career training and education opportunities and adequately funding our colleges, universities, and trade schools. Again, as companies are looking for states to relocate to, they want to go places that have really good post-secondary education opportunities. So I think that's really important. Finally, as we think about workforce development and preparedness, that also includes investing in broadband. We want to know that our students and our workers can access the internet to be able to access their education and go to work and stay in school, especially during this difficult time with COVID.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Thompson, same question back to you. What would you do to grow and develop the state's workforce?
Well, I think we obviously have to look at the trade school issue. Obviously college is not for everyone. There are also opportunities for apprenticeships. My dad was an electrical lineman, and some people can go into that by doing apprenticeships. So, look at the different options that we have, encourage entrepreneurship so people who might want to start their own businesses can create jobs for themselves, and ensuring that colleges and universities are steering people to be job ready when they leave school, which means that we've got to be helping our schools to do the right thing. We've got some serious problems with our K through 12. Shawnee Mission Northwest, for example, in our district has an average GPA of 1.25. We're failing our students there. We don't have any transparency in the students or in the education system of Kansas. So we've got to do things to bring those GPAs up. And that includes getting the money into the classroom as opposed to being very top heavy, as what is the case with the K through 12 education system that we have right now. We've got 63% of the state budget going to education, and yet we're failing our students. So if they can't come out reading and writing, we've got problems developing a workforce there. So those are just some of the concerns that we have, but also looking at being able to have the jobs available, and that goes with making proper decisions about what we're doing to our businesses so that there are some places for those people to be employed.
Okay, thank you, sir. And you kind of just touched on this in your previous answer, but the next question being, and sticking with you, Senator Thompson, can you share with us your views on K-12 funding?
Yeah, well, obviously through the Gannon decision, it's fully funded. And in fact, given the situation right now with the state budget being what it is going forward because of the economic shutdown of this pandemic, I think that this is a time where we look at the $962 million of unspent reserves in the education across the school districts, and have them utilize maybe a third of that to buy us some time. But with regard to funding, it just doesn't make sense to have a carte blanche. We give the state this huge block of money, but then we have zero oversight at the state level. The decision should be made at the local level. But when the money is not making it to classrooms, and when you have failing grades coming out of these individual buildings, then we need to look at what kind of oversight do we have at the state level to help to change things so that these schools can respond. And part of that could be some school choice. It puts pressure on the public schools to perform. In New York, they have a 50,000 student waiting list to go into charter schools. We have a pilot program here in Kansas. So it should give schools or students the opportunity, if their school district is failing, to take that money and follow that student and go to a school that's going to benefit them.
All right, thank you. And repeating the question back to you, Ms. Constance, can you share with us with your views on K-12 funding?
Well, anyone who knows me knows that I am incredibly passionate about education. I have been teaching for 17 years and have a master's in educational policy. So my commitment to education is absolutely unwavering. Having taught for a long time, I have experienced firsthand of what happens with inadequate funding. During the Brownback era, we had significant pay decline, lack of supplies, large class sizes. It was really difficult to meet the needs of our students. Teachers in our community are working incredibly hard to meet kids' needs. We're preparing next week to have our kids back in hybrid and soon back fully in person. So, you know, our teachers are working hard, our families are working hard, and I think that families here deserve adequately funded schools. I don't want to see our state move backwards. And I really think that we need to continue making sure that we prioritize bringing us back to those pre-Brownback levels of education funding. Also, funding has got to be balanced to account for the needs of each and every student, including our special education students, our at-risk students, our English language learners. All means all, and I am absolutely committed to making sure all students learn and have access to a quality education. We also know from a business perspective that having great schools in our community attracts businesses. They want to put down roots in communities with great schools. So that's what I've been committed to during my profession as a teacher, and it's what I'm committed to as a senator as well.
Okay, thank you. And staying with you here, question number 5. What type of economic development policies will you support to encourage job growth and business expansion in Kansas?
I want to start by making sure that we continue to adequately fund our Department of Commerce and make sure that we've got talented leaders in those agencies. They were really gutted during the Brownback era and just now are being properly funded. I was pleased to see Secretary Toland's Kansas Framework for Growth. It outlines some great priorities, including broadband access to expand access for work, school, and telehealth, creating an innovation ecosystem here to attract jobs and billions in investment, and really attracting talent. As we talked earlier about workforce preparedness, we know that by attracting talent, again, it means that we are preparing the workers of today and tomorrow with well-funded universities and trade schools. And another piece of that, again, is just making sure that our roads are in good shape, that we've got broadband. That's really going to help us to capitalize on the opportunities we have here in Kansas. You know, one thing that we have done in Shawnee that I've been proud of is we've really been supportive of partnerships that bring together states, counties, and cities to bring jobs. For example, the Heartland Logistics Park was a really great example of that. So I'm supportive of those types of partnerships as well.
Okay, thank you. And Senator Thompson, same question to you. What type of economic development policies will you support to encourage job growth and business expansion in Kansas?
Well, I think most of all, we need to allow businesses to innovate on their own. Government can be an impediment to business. Anytime you try to develop these public-private partnerships, as a governor, as a legislator rather, you don't know the proper allocation of capital and resources. You lose out on opportunity costs by making decisions that end up being wrong. And so you've got to be very, very cautious with going forward with some of these things. You want to reduce regulation. You need to mainly make it so these businesses can afford to operate, reduce our utility costs, which is a huge thing. I've got one gentleman here who owns a manufacturing plant in Shawnee, and he said he could go across the state line and drop his annual electric bill by $5 million. Why he doesn't do it, I don't understand, but fortunately he's staying here. So we've got to reduce that. Sales taxes are too high. That's a drag on sales for the businesses and for the consumers. and reducing regulation, all types of regulation, to make it remove the barriers for businesses to be able to do their job. Have a one-stop shop at the Department of Commerce for all sorts of business applications and things like that, so you're not running all over the place to start a new business. So you've just got to do some common sense things from the state level, but you've got to be very careful about corporate welfare, because I think it does have unintended consequences, and it's we've seen some of that here in Shawnee.
Yep. We got to stop there on that one. But sticking with you, Mr. Thompson, next question, question 6. What are your views on healthcare policy and Medicaid expansion in Kansas?
Healthcare policy, what we need to do is have personalized, portable, and care that you can take with you, as opposed to what we have. We need to remove some of the federal regulatory barriers, so that we can have much more affordable health care. In Kansas, before we had the Affordable Care Act, we had some very inexpensive plans. Since then, obviously, healthcare costs have gone through the roof, and we need to do some things to allow people to be able to take control of their own personal plans, and even if they change jobs, be able to take that plan with them. As for Medicaid expansion, all other states surrounding Kansas are now Medicaid expansion states. Oklahoma and Arkansas are already regretting it. Medicaid expansion is blowing up their budgets. It would do the same thing here in Kansas. I realize there are people who need some help, but there are affordable plans that are available to them now. Medicaid expansion will make it impossible for us to cover the current crop of Medicaid people, those who are most vulnerable, particularly intellectually and developmentally disabled people who will never be able to take care of themselves. Those are the folks that we need to take care of, not the able-bodied expansion folks who would actually lose access to health care and be forced onto much more expensive healthcare programs. So Medicaid expansion is the wrong thing to do, and particularly when you have a budget deficit like we have, it would make it much harder for us to balance our budget. Okay,
thank you. Ms. Constance, same question to you, I'll repeat it. What are your views on healthcare policy and Medicaid expansion in Kansas?
Now more than ever, it's critical that we expand Medicaid. Not only does this provide 150,000 working Kansans with access to health care, but it will help keep our rural hospitals open, a third of which are currently financially vulnerable. It will create and maintain as many as 13,000 critical jobs across our state. Also, it's just common sense to keep our tax dollars here in Kansas rather than sending them to the federal government and not seeing them again. So far, we've turned away $4 billion from the federal government, and it doesn't make sense. Over 2 budget years, it would cost $20 million in state general funds, but would leverage $1.5 billion from the federal government. In my mind, that is a smart investment, and one that most other states have now followed with. Businesses know that a healthy and productive workforce helps our state's economy grow by keeping people at work, keeping them doing their jobs. In addition to expanding Medicaid, I support quality mental health services, making sure that we're protecting coverage for people with pre-existing conditions, and having broadband as a part of our infrastructure investments, so to make sure that we have telehealth options as well for people in communities where they can't get to a hospital or a clinic.
Okay, and sticking with you, Ms. Constance, question number 7. What are your views on state tax policy?
Okay, I really think we need to get to a place in Kansas where we have a responsible and balanced tax approach. That 3-legged stool approach that relies on property, income, and sales is very important. Under the Brownback era, we relied too heavily on property tax, and so many constituents are really struggling under this unbalanced system. As a city council member, it's something that I hear a lot, and I know constituents are really struggling under this unbalanced system. Do have higher than ever property taxes, so we've got to make sure that we create some relief for everyday Kansans. I will say it's been a priority at the city level to look for opportunities to bring commercial development into our city to create that more balanced tax base locally, and I think that's something that the business community can help with. I favor policies that support our local economies and Kansas businesses. I oppose the bill last year that was tax giveaways to giant multinational corporations. One interesting solution that I was pleased to see was the possibility of a golden years tax freeze. It caps your property tax level once you reach 65. A lot of the folks struggling are in those golden years, and I think we need to see how we can help them. And finally, I support an internet sales tax. It's also, in addition to bringing some additional revenue, it helps level the playing field for some of our local retail shops.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Thompson, same question to you. What are your views on state tax policy?
Well, it's certainly completely the opposite of my opponent, who apparently hasn't seen a tax that she doesn't like. As regarding the property tax, I sponsored 2 bills this last year that would have stopped this property tax increase by forcing the states to, or the state or the counties to, even if they were going to keep the mill levels the same, if they're going to increase valuation, it would have forced them to adjust the property tax so it would have been exactly the same for the next year. And if they were going to raise it, they have to call people in, allow people to be there, see the meeting, and vote right in front of them. That happened, that worked in Utah. It stopped the property tax increases that they were having there. Also, for just normal maintenance to your home, you shouldn't have valuation increases as a result of that. So those are 2 things. The internet sales tax, I think, would just be an additional drag on many people who now use e-commerce in the state of Kansas. The Wayfair decision was horrible. Again, it places a burden on the Kansas people to collect taxes for other states. Bad idea. Property taxes, like I said, are tripling the rate of inflation, so we've got to get that under control. And here in Shawnee, when we do some of these things that increase sales tax for consumers, it hurts businesses, it hurts consumers. We've got to bring sales taxes down. You don't push tax hikes on people and expect prosperity. That's what you do with the taxes. You've got to stop this taxation.
Yep. Okay. So, and this actually brings us up, and Senator Thompson, sticking with you here, brings us up to our final question. And it's just simply, what do you believe most distinguishes you from your opponent in this race?
Transparency for number one. I've got a website that shows every bill I voted on, why I voted on it, so people can go there and see what's happening at the state level. It's very difficult to find out what's happening in Kansas. And so I want people to know. I want them to know my views and to see how I'm voting. As opposed to my opponent, common sense energy policies. As she's made a statement in the beginning, climate change and those policies surrounding climate change, we're making a lot of very bad energy policies decisions based on that. Yes, we do have wind in Kansas. We've got to deal with that. But if you look at the wind power since 2007, we've seen our electrical prices go up, up, up. There's a lot more to it than meets the eye. In fact, I need about 30 minutes to explain the wind power situation in Kansas. But we need to develop better energy sources. We need to use natural gas. We need to look at expanding our nuclear facilities, and also trying to figure out what we do with these wind turbine farms that are affecting many rural communities in Kansas negatively. There's a lot of different issues that we've got going forward that we've got to deal with. So, and responsible government, just be careful with the spending. Fiscal responsibility is very important to me. Like I said, I want my people here in this district to be able to prosper, be able to stay here.
Yep, gonna have to. All right, back to you, Ms. Constance. So, repeating the question again, what do you believe most distinguishes you from your opponent in this race?
I think my opponent and I differ on the issues, and we differ in our approach. I support policies that are good for business, like equal rights and protections for LGBTQ individuals. It creates a welcoming environment for businesses to want to relocate to. I advocate for climate change solutions, which paves the way for innovation, both in agriculture and in energy. I support renewable energy projects as an economic development tool, and again, my opponent has actively opposed them. I support expanding Medicaid to create jobs and save millions of dollars for our state. I support accepting COVID relief funding from the federal government, and I support funding transportation and infrastructure. These are all things my opponent has opposed or voted against. My approach is to face problems head on rather than to minimize or pretend that they don't exist. I have experience bringing people together to solve problems, finding common ground, and using facts and data to solve problems. That's been my approach as a teacher in the classroom. It's been my approach on the city council and in work I've done with the chamber and as president of Climate Action KC, and it's going to be my approach as a Kansas senator.
All right, thank you. And that actually concludes the question and answer portion for today. So with that, we're going to begin with the closing statements by candidates. And just as a reminder, you will have 2 minutes to wrap it up. And in the order that we were going, actually, Ms. Constance, we're staying with you. So go ahead. Mute. And mute. Lindsay, you're still on mute. There you go.
Are we good?
Yeah, we can start over on the 2 minutes, of course.
Okay, no worries. So again, thank you to the chamber and all the residents who joined us today. My experience on the council has prepared me to serve in the Kansas Senate. On the council, I have worked to ease the property tax burden on homeowners by working to attract businesses and commercial development to Shawnee. Again, my experience as president of Climate Action KC has allowed me to bring diverse groups of people together to solve complex problems, from our climate action playbook to our partnerships with businesses on providing information on finances and how it relates to resiliency. It's been a focus of mine, and I've really enjoyed that time. It's given me a lot of hope being able to work with so many different leaders through that endeavor. My 17 years of teaching experience has also given me insight into the struggles that families are facing. Again, the differences between myself and Mr. Thompson could not be clearer. I face problems head on. I have a track record of building coalitions and finding solutions and using facts and data to guide my decision making. I got into this race because I want to create a bright future for my kids and the students I have taught in the classroom. We do that by keeping our schools safe and fully funded, by increasing access to affordable health care, investing in infrastructure, and revitalizing our economy by helping businesses get back to work. Our community deserves a senator who will face the facts and work with leaders to find common ground and create solutions to make our community stronger. Our state is no stranger to big problems, and neither am I, and I'm ready to work with you to move Kansas forward.
Okay, thank you. And with that, Mr. Thompson, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you again to the chamber. Thank you to Evergy, and thank you for to my opponent for her service on the city council. And she's right, I agree with her. We couldn't be more different in our approach to things. I also agree that I want a bright future for my family here in this state and everyone in this district. I also agree that we've got some serious policy challenges ahead that we've got to have a common sense approach to. Where we disagree is on pretty much everything else, from the expensive tax policies that she's promoted in Shawnee. She pushed a $38 million tax increase here on the Shawnee homeowners, even though 72% of the city opposed it. The expensive renewables program has been problematic in other states and will be a big problem for the Kansas area. It's going to continue to increase our utility costs. There's no doubt about that because of the increase in infrastructure, the increase of counter-cyclical generation. It's a very complex problem. I understand complex problems. In my former career as a meteorologist, I know how to multitask. I know how to deal with very, very complex problems. There's nothing simple about what happens in the state. And every decision you make has the potential of having unintended consequences. So things of that nature, energy policy, property tax policy, sales tax policy is important to the vitality and growth of the state of Kansas. I'm committed to doing the right thing. I'm committed to common sense solutions in the state, not pie in the sky sort of stuff. It sounds good. But, you know, these are discussions we need to have going forward. And it's more than just soundbite science. It's more than just rhetoric. It's all about digging in and finding the correct solutions for the state of Kansas going forward. So I think we have the opportunity to avoid mistakes like Medicaid expansion and become a shining example for the surrounding states to follow in years to come.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And thank you to both candidates, both Ms. Constance and Mr. Thompson, for being here today. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts. We also want to thank our sponsor, Evergy. This concludes today's forum for the Kansas Senate District 10. Thank you both again. This forum will be available to view along with all other races in Johnson County on the JCPPC website at votejoco.com. And many of the candidates have completed candidate questionnaires that can be found there as well. And let me close by reminding viewers of a few key dates. Advanced voting by mail begins on Wednesday, October 14th. You may return your ballot in Shawnee at the drop box located at Shawnee Library, 13811 Johnson Drive, or via the U.S. mail. Advanced voting in person begins on Saturday, October 17th, and you can cast your ballot in Shawnee at the Oaken Field House, 20200 Johnson Drive. General Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. And with that, I just ask you to get out there and vote. And once again, thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Joe.